So hello everybody and welcome. Let's jump right into it. What will War Thunder Aviation be like in 3 years? Let's be perfectly honest here. A free-to-play business model game like War Thunder must develop new and exciting content to attract new players and to keep existing players engaged. I got attracted to the game based on the modern aircraft and tank advertisements, so the strategy works. You can see evidence of the free-to-play business model approach at work with the most recent April Fool's event. This testing ground featured new mechanics such as hard kill APS systems, beyond line of sight surface-to-surface missiles, drones, and much more. Let's first answer the elephant in the room. Will this game even be around in 3 years? Well, for this video to progress, we have to change some assumptions into facts. For one, I think yes. The game will be around in 3 years, at least for the fact that there's still much more content yet to be introduced and explored. War Thunder has thoroughly established itself as a realistic vehicle combat game, spanning the World War II and Cold War eras right up to modern day. Many of the vehicles added are still in frontline service with many militaries, but we still have further to go. Since its 2011 release, Gaijin has been steadily adding vehicles and new mechanics to War Thunder. There are hundreds of vehicles represented in the game, literally thousands upon thousands of hours of content just in the World War II era alone. So there is something for everyone at this point. Not to say there hasn't been some turmoil as the game has progressed. Balance issues, the free-to-play business model itself, and a whole host of other issues have brought controversy to the game. However, Gaijin has made some progress on the player relations front. For example, they just had a dev server testing out the new pressure mechanic that will replace hull break. They've never done anything like that before, so I give them credit for that. Gaijin also reconsidered the SK-105A2, aka the Jagdpanzer K2, and ended up giving both France and Germany the vehicle after initial player feedback during the IXWA strike update. So let's get back to the subject at hand. Like I said before, I originally came over to War Thunder because of the modern vehicles they advertise. I see lots more growth in this area of the game in particular, despite the grind it takes to get there, but that's a subject for another video. I understand that modern combat may not be everyone's cup of tea, but honestly, I'm kind of burned out on the World War II genre as a whole. My generation grew up with fighters like the F-16 and tanks like the Abrams. I love seeing modern combat vehicles such as these depicted in games. So this is how my view on the next 3 years will look as far as aviation content development. The areas I will cover are exclusively my opinion only. Gaijin is not giving me any information whatsoever on the content direction, and they don't pay me anything. My intent is to share my ideas with you and generate some positive and constructive dialogue around the subject. I also know that as I list vehicles that could be added to the game, I'm going to run into the problem of haves and have-nots. Quite simply, some nations do not have a robust defense industrial base, and that will be painfully obvious as Gaijin struggles to find content to fill the gaps for all the nations in game without resorting to excessive copy-paste. But it is what it is. Military sales is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and defense programs with multiple customers are a fact of life. Vehicles like the Leopard 1 and 2, the M1 Abrams, the F-16 Falcon, the H-64 Apache, MiG-29 Fulcrums, and T-90 main battle tanks, just to name a few, have been exported around the globe. We are entering an absolute golden age for aircraft though, however, and I'm excited. To keep this video at a reasonable length, I'm going to just cover aviation here, not to include helicopters. If this is well received, I will consider covering helicopters, ground vehicles, and perhaps even naval in subsequent videos. However, this essay will cover the aircraft I think are coming, the capabilities they will bring with them, and finally what Gaijin should do to make sure that the new content is fun for players. Rank 7 and beyond aircraft are coming. We all know that. I can name them all, but I want to focus on the most important aircraft per nation and what they will bring with them, and the ecosystem needed for these aircraft to be viable and fun for those playing them and playing against them. The list isn't meant to be all-inclusive, but I appreciate any additions you guys bring to the comment section to generate further discussion. Starting with the US tech tree first, we should see some pretty interesting aircraft coming in rank 7 and above. Specifically, everybody's been waiting for the F-14. That's going to be pretty great to see, especially if Gaijin breaks it up between the A, B, and D models. We'll see the F-15 come, the F-15A being the earliest, definitely the C and the Echo variants, the Strike Eagle, and even some new developments like the F-15EX, which is kind of just made its debut. If Gaijin does this right, with the addition of the F-16, it literally should be the gift that keeps giving. There are a plethora of F-16 variants that Gaijin could add to the game. I mean, the F-16A is pretty obvious, but things like the F-16 Air Defense Fighter, the CG, the F-16CJ, even some interesting Israeli models such as the F-16I, be really great when we start seeing those come into the game. Another gold mine here will be the addition of the F-18 Hornet, and I'm talking the classic F-18 Hornet and the F-18 Super Hornets. There's a range of models that Gaijin could add to the game, specifically if they choose to implement the suppression of enemy air defense mechanics. We could see things like the F-18G Growler, which would be great. Another winner that may even take the form of a premium would be the addition of the A-10. A lot of people have been waiting for the A-10 Thunderbolt. That would be another great addition that I know is coming to the game sooner or later. The F-22, even the YF-23, which was a competitor to the F-22. Maybe the YF-23 could come as a premium vehicle or some kind of event vehicle. Also coming would be the F-111. I know with the F-15 Strike Eagle, it might be a little bit redundant, but we do have the swing wing mechanics in the game, so it would be nice to see the plane, although like I said, it might be a little redundant, but still another option. Before we move on to Russia, one last variant of the F-15 Strike Eagle would be the Israeli F-15I Ram. Now, we could probably see that as a premium or event vehicle. I think that would be pretty interesting as an addition. Looking at the future for Russian aviation, I think this is another bright spot as well. Definitely the MiG-23 and MiG-27. MiG-23s are going to be an absolute gold mine here. There's so many variants of that across so many different nations that Gaijin would be able to fill in the gaps with the MiG-23 and MiG-27s. MiG-27 being specifically ground attack variant of the MiG-23. The MiG-25 Foxbat would be pretty interesting, although I don't know about the actual use cases for an aircraft like the MiG-25, and by association the MiG-31, which would be another high-speed, high-altitude interceptor, and the MiG-29 Fulcrum. Oh my gosh, that'll be the gift that keeps giving as well. So many variants of the MiG-29 across multiple nations that Gaijin should have no problem filling that out into the tech tree. Even seeing some premium or event vehicle variants of that, and other nations would get that as well. The Su-24 Fencer, similar to F-111 with swing wings, a strike bomber, low altitude strike bomber option. That would be nice as well. The Su-25 Frogfoot, competitor to the A-10. So many different variants of the Su-25. Be great to see that coming to the game as well. And oh my gosh, the flanker family, the Su-27s, the Su-30s, 33s, Su-35s. So many options and directions for Gaijin to take here with that particular airframe. And then finally the Su-57 Felon, the latest from Russia, competitor to the F-22. That would definitely give Russia it would be a balance against aircraft like the F-22 or YF-23 if they were added. And moving on to Germany, we just saw Germany get the F4F for the latest crafting event, but definitely the F4F Ice will be coming. The Panavia Tornado, the Tornado family will be coming. The IDS, the ECR version, which is a suppression of enemy air defense version of that. Perhaps we could even see Alpha Jets for Germany. Again, MiG-23s for when East Germany was a thing. Su-20 and Su-22 fitters, export variants of the Su-17. We'll definitely see MiG-29 Fulcrums for Germany. The MiG-29G in particular really interests me as the Luftwaffe used that up until pretty recently with lots and lots of updates, Western avionic updates. The United Kingdom would get the Tornado GR3 and GR4. They would also get the Tornado air defense variants. The United Kingdom, along with Italy and Saudi Arabia, were the only countries to operate this specific air defense variant of the Tornado, so it'd be nice to see that come. United Kingdom would also get their Eurofighter and possibly an F-35. The UK is also working on a 6th generation fighter called the Tempest. It's really only in mock-up right now, but that could definitely be an option to add for the UK. And moving on to Japan, I know Gaijin has struggled to add content for the Japanese tech tree into the game, specifically when it comes to ground forces. And it may be a little bit of the same thing on the air side for Japan. Certainly they'll get the Mitsubishi F2, which is a F-16 derivative. Not an F-16, but it looks like one. Certainly Japan will get the Mitsubishi F-15J and F-15J Kai. If Gaijin was really reaching for content, they could also add the D variants of both of those aircraft. Japan would also get their own F-35 since they've bought into the program. So for China, following the blueprint in the game already that they've used for China, we could see China get the FCK-1. I'm going to mispronounce it, but Qingguo, I think it's called. Definitely the Mirage 2000 early variants of the S-16, the CAC FC-1. Pakistan also has that fighter. It's called the JF-17 Thunder. See the J-10, and we'll certainly see the Chinese derivatives of the flanker. The J-11, 15, and 16 series, possibly the J-20, J-31, and the JH-7 for China. For Sweden, I would certainly like to see later variant of the J-35 Draken. The J-35J comes to mind. That's the last Draken, I believe, that was developed before it was removed from service. So that would be great for Sweden. Also, seeing the Viggen. We know the Viggen will be coming sooner or later. And then lastly, the JAS-39 Gripen will be coming for Sweden. Looking at France, this is another bright spot in the tech tree. The Mirage 3 airframe, gave birth to so many derivatives. The Mirage 5, the Mirage 50. France exported that aircraft all around the world. And there's many update packages for those models, those derivatives of the basic Mirage 3 that we could see. So looking forward to that. We could also see the Mirage F1, and there are many derivatives of the Mirage F1. That aircraft was exported quite a bit as well. Same thing with Mirage 2000 series across the C and the D. So many derivatives of the Mirage 2000 that we could see in game. And then finally, rounding out France, we have the Rafale, which would be their basically in-game aircraft. Rafale having a lot of capability. Probably a good match against aircraft, maybe like the Typhoon. And finally, getting to Italy. Italy would certainly get an F-16 as they operated that. Their Tornado, IDS, and ECR variants, Eurofighter, Typhoon for Italy, and the F-35 as well. I know I just listed a lot of airplanes here, but the airframe itself isn't the end-all be-all. The onboard avionics and weapon systems are going to be what really matters at the end of the day. For example, when we finally get the F4F ICE, yeah, it will be an F4 airframe, which is decades old, but the updated radar, avionics, and weapons, such as the AMRAAM, will have increased this fighter's lethality exponentially. So again, what are these aircraft bringing with them other than the airframe? For one, they're bringing look-down, shoot-down radar, which is radar that can detect and guide munitions to a target in ground clutter. We will also get ASAs, electronically scanned arrays, such as the APG-77 and APG-80, which have more capability than mechanically scanning radars, which we currently have in the lower ranks. We should also get IRS systems, infrared search and track, which will allow for passive searching and tracking of targets. You could acquire a target and engage completely passively. These aircraft will also bring comprehensive electronic countermeasures that include active and passive jamming, much like the Russian Vitibisk ECM suite that I covered in a previous video. Although that video focused on the helicopter application, there are fixed-wing applications for the Vitivis ECM suite. With these aircraft additions, we'll also start to see high off-bore sight, all-aspect infrared missiles, like the AIM-9X, the ASRAAM, and the R-73 and R-74 family of missiles. And you thought dealing with the SRAM was fun, right? We're also going to need helmet-mounted sights for those high off-bore sight missiles. Sim pilots would love this, I think. I would even probably start playing Sim if this were introduced. In rounding out the air-to-air munitions, we're going to see the active radar-guided missiles. The beyond visual range engagements are going to start to be a thing. The AMRAAM specifically, and the R-77 or AA-12 Adder, if you're referring to it by its NATO reporting name, are going to be some pretty good missiles. We should also start to see more sophisticated standoff air-to-ground munitions. We already have the AGM-65A Maverick and the KH-23 Grom. Missiles that come now will be even more lethal. So a lot of the aircraft coming have super cruise capability and thrust vectoring capability baked in. And expect that with the beyond visual range fight, that making it to the merge, I expect that to happen less often. But when you do get to the merge and you get in that fireball, I expect that due to the thrust vectoring, that those super maneuverability fights should be pretty interesting to participate in and to watch. Having said that, and considering the capabilities a lot of these aircrafts come with, actually finding yourself in the merge, in the furball, is probably a failing on your part. You should have engaged that aircraft long before you get forced into a merge situation where it becomes very dangerous for you. With aircraft capable of so much more, we should get more game modes. Specifically, SEED, or Suppression of Enemy Air Defense aircraft, like the F-4G Wild Weasel, the F-16 CJ, or Tornado ECR, should come to the game. Currently, we have these single match death melees that are way too linear for what we could get. Hopefully Gaijin would introduce new game modes where we could use suppression of enemy air defense aircraft. Next, and what probably is most critical here, is what does Gaijin need to do to make sure these aircraft are fun to play and fun to play against? We've all experienced the imbalance in the game where another aircraft will have flares, radar warning receivers, radar missiles, and you don't have any of that. And what happens? You just blow up. You shoot at them, they flare it out, they chaff it out, your missiles miss, they get on you, and then you blow up. That's just not fun at all. So to stop this from happening, when Gaijin adds an aircraft, these new planes I'm talking about, they need to add a counter to it at the same time. They also need to add everything that comes with those planes. So if they have ECM suites, they have jamming pods, they have chaff, they have flares, all that needs to come at the same time so that there is a counter on the other side. Another thing that would go a long way to making players happy and ensuring that that aircraft are fun to play and play against would be if Gaijin introduced a mechanic to give players the ability to customize their weapon stores. The preset options are great, but to increase player immersion, players should be able to mix and match what they want and take into battle the configurations that they want. So I talked about long-range beyond visual range missiles before, but to keep this fun, the maps are really going to have to get larger. We're talking about AIM-120s, AIM-54 Phoenix missiles, R-37Ms, R-74Ms, R-77s. These missiles have long range, so the maps are going to have to be bigger. We cannot be jammed in these small maps with the super cruise capability of these aircraft. It's just not going to be fun unless the maps get larger to accommodate these weapons that have more capability. And one last thing just to round this out is Gaijin is going to have to find a way to increase situational awareness for the player. Otherwise, people are just going to be flying along and then they're just going to blow up. And they're not going to know why or who killed them. They're just going to blow up. So to address that, perhaps modeling in data link capability, aircraft are able to share targeting information. It may be hard with the mixed teams, but that's just a way. Another thing Gaijin's going to need to continue to do is model those realistic heads-up displays. There's a lot of information on the HUD that will increase player situational awareness, and that goes with the air-to-air and air-to-ground radar modes. Though the fidelity in that will need to be modeled in game to keep player situational awareness up. So in conclusion, and if you're still here, thank you. But in conclusion, to round this out, my hope is that as they roll in the rank 7 and beyond aircraft and those new mechanics, that it's not done piecemeal. Really, we've seen the piecemeal approach where a faction will get a capability or a new aircraft and then the other sides don't have it, and we see the imbalance that brings to the game, and it certainly isn't fun to play through that. So I covered a lot of predictions and recommendations. Notably, I didn't discuss strategic bombers at all, like the B-1B Lancer or the Tu-160 Blackjack. Maybe a subject for another video, but right now I don't see how Gaijin can integrate those amazing platforms into the deathmatch melee mode we have right now for air realistic battles. Let me know what your thoughts are. What aircraft do you want? How do you think Gaijin can make them work? And go ahead and throw that in the comments. And I appreciate you sticking around, and take care, and I'll see you in the next video.